Hey, hello everybody. This is the NACON Revolution 5 Pro. This guy works for the PS5, PS4, and also the PC. It comes in this nice looking box. Just a whole bunch of features here. We're gonna go through them. You also get this funky looking case as well, says Nikon on it. USB-C cable. We get a controller itself, but we'll get back to this in a minute. You can also use this wirelessly, come with this wireless dongle here, and you get this really nice looking case. Look at all these goodies. All of these are extra weight you can add to the controller. Add them on like that and close it up. The default stick caps are these concave Xbox style stick caps, but you can replace it with these dome-based stick caps. These are so much better for fighting games, and the reason why they're better for fighting games is because you can rotate it a lot smoother. It also comes with two of these really long and thick stick caps. If you prefer long stick caps, you have the option here. But my favorite feature about these sticks is the addition of these rings. If you don't want a lot of travel, you can add these rings to the sticks. I'm gonna take the two thickest one here, put on the dome stick caps. These combinations gonna make it super easy for you to do 360s or 720s. And in terms of tension, they are very similar to the tension on the Xbox controllers. And you also have this little plug that you can plug in here. This guy's gonna allow you to pair Bluetooth headsets or earbuds to the controller. Isn't that cool or what? This is the pair button for your earbuds. This is a great idea. I wish more controllers do this. I want to talk about this section here for a little bit. These are the audio controls, and there's this switch that's A and C. The A stands for advanced, C stands for conventional maybe. All advanced means that it allows you to switch between profiles. And if you switch it to C, essentially this is just a regular old controller. You won't have any advanced features. But the other thing is this. This is too busy, and this is too close to these two buttons right here. And this had happened to me where I tried to use this back button, but I accidentally switched profiles and it caused me to lose the match. So this whole thing really should be up here and out of the way. All of these things can be moved down here. You really don't want a whole bunch of buttons and switches be next to something that get pressed regularly. You also have two options for D-pads, the disc-based D-pad and this cross-shaped D-pad. While using this controller, I can't help but think that NACON is really inspired by the Xbox Series Elite 2 controller. They are very similar in a lot of design choices. From the 2D pads, to the offset joysticks, to the design of the shoulder and trigger buttons. Here you can see them side by side. You can really see the resemblance. And that's not a bad thing. If you're someone who prefer the Xbox style of controllers and you game on the PS5, this may be a good choice for you. In terms of build quality, I think it's pretty well built. No flex at all, very solid. The plastic on the faceplate here seems to be made out of soft plastic, and the handles are rubber. I'm not a huge fan of the design here, but it works. The stick caps are nice and grippy. I have no problem with them. And so check this out. It's super easy for me to do circular motions. Look at that. You see how easy that was? And that was supposed to be 2 entire circles. I can practically do it with this setup 100% of the time. Now let's talk about the face buttons. They're pretty big actually, and they're close together. This makes it easy to press both of them at the same time. You can also play claw. Not a problem here. What I don't particularly love here is the feel of the switches. They're rubber dome switches and they're kind of heavy. Yeah, they spring up pretty quick, but I just don't like the feel of it. Just think of this as a heavy, mushy switch. I don't know how else to describe it, but that's the best I can do. But at the end of the day, they work though. They are responsive, I'll give them that. Now let's move on to the shoulder buttons. These are alright. They work as advertised. You can press it in on both sides. They're clicky and responsive. In fact, these feel so much better than on the face buttons. I wish the face buttons have the same switches as these guys up here. These feel a lot clickier. And the trigger is right below it. If you've ever used an Xbox controller before, you know this is the same design. However, here's the difference. The length of the trigger on this handle is just super long. You see this? I have to use my fingertips to press these in. Now on the regular Xbox controller, you see the trigger is where this part of the knuckle is at. The length of the triggers on the Xbox controller is shorter than on the NACON. You may be thinking to yourself, why does that matter? Because these triggers are so far out, you're gonna get tired a lot faster. And you can test this yourself. You're gonna have to use a lot more force on your fingertips. But if the trigger is a little shorter and it's positioned over here, when you press the trigger, you're gonna feel that your forearm is doing a lot of the work, because the pressure is distributed all around your arm up to your fingertips. It's just a lot easier when squeezing these triggers. Whereas if you have to squeeze the triggers just with your fingertips, your index finger is going to get tired real quick. So hopefully for the next one, NACON will move this guy back a little bit. Just slant it back this way like it is here on the Xbox. You see how the shoulder buttons is way above the triggers. Alright, let's talk about the D-pad. This is a circular disc with 4 bumps. 1, 2, 3, and then you have this long bump here. And I get what they're going for. They want you to feel what direction you're pressing, and that's a great idea. Unfortunately, this D-pad is just not very accurate. I have a lot of trouble with cardinal directions with this guy, even with these bumps. Sometimes I want to do up and it does up forward. It's super irritating. With motion inputs, it's a lot better. But let me tell you, after repeatedly running your thumb over these bumps, your thumb is going to get torn up. If you're going to design a disc D-pad, I feel that Microsoft did it right. There's no bumps on the disc at all, so that way you can just slide your thumb back and forth without any resistance at all. And another thing about these bumps is I don't mind the small ones. Why is there this bigger one? This makes it so inconsistent. Had they just done 4 smaller bumps here, I feel like this D-pad would be a lot better. I really had high hopes for this D-pad. It looks cool, it looks interesting, but unfortunately it's not as accurate as I would like it to be. And if you take the D-pad out, you can see this is what's underneath it. You can clearly see that it rotates in the middle. There's a pivot here, and there are 4 switches on each of the directions. If you don't like the disc D-pad, you can switch it out with the diamond-shaped D-pad. And this D-pad is super small, as you can see. Initially, I didn't really like this D-pad. First of all, it's on the smaller side. It's placed in the middle of this concave platform. And I hate it whenever controller designers do this. The reason is when you press any directions, for example down, your thumb is going to have to fight against this edge. You have to press the button and you have to press through the edge. Same thing on the sides here, not so much up, but the down button is a huge problem for me. However, over time I did get used to it, and this D-pad is a lot better than I initially thought. And this is why I don't test the controllers for just a couple of days and then put a review out. I really put the controller through its paces to kind of know the ins and outs of it before I put my reviews out. This D-pad is a lot more accurate and precise than the disc D-pad. Because it is on a smaller size, it allows you to do motion inputs a lot quicker as well. I can actually do Zangief's throw pretty easy with this D-pad. Check that out. You can do charge motion super easy here. And this is why you need to spend some time with the D-pad before you really know if it's good or not. Because at first I really thought it was too small, but now I learned that because it is smaller, it makes it faster for you to do motion inputs. Isn't that crazy? This D-pad is definitely better than the disc D-pad, but it's not perfect though. For one, because it is smaller, so the center of gravity is closer to the middle, this makes the button a lot heavier to press. Secondly, I really don't care about these bumps at each of the directions. I get it, this is cool looking and the idea is so that you can feel your way around, but I'm gonna just take a wild guess that anybody that picks up any controller will figure out that this is left, this is right, this is down, and this is up. I really wish that these things didn't exist, because it really just slows you down. With that being said though, this D-pad is great for 3D fighters, and the fact that the buttons are smaller and closer, it makes it a lot easier for your thumb to press both of them at once. I can do the Korean backdash super easy. But whenever I do this, oh my god, let me tell you, these things, man, just grinds my thumb. It's like sandpaper. Double taps are pretty good. I can just execute all of my combos without any problems. These triggers also come with trigger stops, so you just press it in, push it up. So they go about halfway versus all the way down. There's only 2 levels, unfortunately. I would like another level where the trigger goes just a little bit so that it feels more like a button. And this NACON also comes with 4 extra back buttons. These 2 are pretty useful, but these 2 on the handles, I don't particularly love their placement, because when you squeeze the controller, as you just game normally, you're gonna tend to squeeze the handles. You're gonna accidentally press these buttons. These 2 back buttons are actually pretty good. They're clicky and tactile, very responsive. It helps me do the backdash really quickly. Whenever I do this, people think that I'm taunting them, that I'm teabagging, but I'm really not. I'm just backing away really quickly. And these buttons on the handles, because you have to use your ring fingers, these have a lot less power. I just can't do it as quickly. If you don't absolutely have to have all 4 back buttons working at the same time, I really recommend just not use these. You can download this app from their website to adjust the settings or to remap the buttons. There's 3 modes here: PS5, PS4, and PC. You can check for the firmware update here as well. If you want to remap the buttons, you have to create a new profile. You can remap the buttons here. Oh, and check this out. Under D-pad, you have a choice of 4-way or 8-way. If you choose 4-way, diagonals will not work. Here, and let me show you the right trigger. When the lock position is at half, the software is defaulted to only half. You see how it only goes halfway? And some fighting games require you to press this all the way in order for you to execute a move. So what you want to do here is change it to instant. You're gonna see it's 100%. And I really like this app. It allows you to customize a lot of things. If it wasn't for this app and the ability to change the trigger settings here, you would not be able to use the trigger stops on some fighting games. You can change the lighting effects here. Personally, I don't care about this. You can set the EQ here for your Bluetooth headsets. Now, this is interesting. There is vibration here. However, it will not work on PS5 games. Isn't that weird? So I'm starting to think that this is a Sony thing. Does Sony not want third-party controllers to have their vibration technologies? Or do they charge more for the licensing fee for it? This is crazy because these third-party controllers are expensive. It's ridiculous. And under test here, you can see your controller reacting to your input. This is super cool. Alright, it's that time for the input lag test. On wired, you got minimum at 1.27, maximum 4.2 milliseconds. So the difference here is not that huge. Jitter is tiny at 0.03. Average input delay is 3.86 milliseconds. This is on the faster side. In the polling rate, it's going to be 258. For wireless, minimum is 3.56. Maximum is 7.94. So you see the variance here is a little bit bigger and is slower too versus wired, and that's because the jitter is a lot higher at 0.26 versus on wired at only 0.03. So we went up almost tenfold in terms of jitter. Average input delay is pretty close though at 4 milliseconds, just a tiny bit slower, and that's because the polling rate is pretty close to wired. It's only about 10 Hz off, which is really impressive. Typically, there's a big difference between wired and wireless. For example, on the Xbox Elite Series 2 wired, it's 127, and then on wireless, it drops all the way down to 64, so it's almost half. But that's not the case with the NACON. They're very close, and you gotta give them props for this. This is the one controller where the performance difference between wired and wireless is actually pretty minimal. So good job, NACON. Overall, I do like this controller a lot. Although it's not perfect, I think it works pretty well. I do like the ability to switch back and forth between these two D-pads. I love the combination of the dome stick cap with the added ring to the stick here, making it super easy to do circular motions. I do wish that they use better switches though. These are a little heavy. Overall, if you like the look and feel of an Xbox controller but want to use it on the PS5, this guy is the best option available right now. Alright, hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, give it a like, subscribe for more, and take care now.